In the year 1820, Harriet Tubman was born in a small cabin in the state of Maryland. She was a slave. Her mom was Old Rich. Her dad was Ben. Her name was Araminta Ross, nicknamed Minty.
Harriet was sold to Susan Bones for 6 pennies at the age of 7. One day, Harriet wanted a sugar cube. She reached out for one. Miss Susan grabbed the whip and Harriet made a run for it. She took refuge in a pig pen for a week. She fought with the pigs for scraps of potato peels. When she realized she couldn't go on much longer, she returned to her mistress.
In 1833, Harriet was working hard, but another man wasn't doing that much work. Suddenly he ran off. The overseer shouted at him to come back. When he didn't return, the overseer ran after him. Harriet knew trouble was brewing. She followed them to a store. The overseer wanted Harriet to help him catch the slave and whip him. Harriet said no, and the slave ran out the door, but Harriet quickly blocked the door. The overseer picked up a metal weight and threw it at the runaway. The metal weight hit Harriet instead. For 6 months, Old Brit and Ben didn't know whether Harriet would live or die. She survived, but for the rest of her life she had strange sleeping spells.
In 1844, Harriet met John Tubman. A while after they met, they got married. Harriet immediately started to make escape plans. John told her he was being stupid.
4 years after they were married, Harriet decided that desperate times called for desperate measures. Harriet decided to leave John in order to be free. Once she was sure John was asleep, she crept out of the cabin. She ran to freedom. To help her escape on cloudy nights when the North Star was out of sight, she felled the trees. She knew moss only grew on the north side of trees. A long time later, she found herself in Pennsylvania. She later quoted, "I looked at my hands to see if I was still the same person." Pennsylvania was a free state. Nobody could own slaves in that state.
The big city was cold and unwelcoming. Despite that, Harriet soon made friends and found a job. A year later, she started working as a conductor on the Underground Railroad. She went back 19 times, leading hundreds of slaves to freedom.
Some methods of escaping include an old African American woman walked down the road carrying 2 chickens. As a white man walks towards her, she automatically drops the chickens and starts running after them. The man chuckles to himself as he goes back to his own business. Her trick has worked. It's Moses. Another day, Harriet and 2 white men were talking on a train. The 2 men are talking about her. "There is a 40,000 price tag for the person who finds her," one says, as the men are suspecting her. She pulls out a book and starts reading. The men are fooled. Lucky for Harriet, she was holding the book the right way up.
Once when Harriet was leading her troops to freedom, she knocked on the door of a farmhouse. A man who helped slaves lived there, but the person who answered wasn't the man. He was a man who despised of freeing slaves. Harriet turned on her heel and marched off and found a better place to stay.
In 1861, the Civil War began. During the war, Harriet nursed many soldiers. She used plants and roots to create medicine. She cured many soldiers that trained professionals claimed to be gravely ill and incurable. She also worked as a spy for the Union. Harriet was never caught. She saved many slaves from big plantations during the war. Those slaves soon became Union soldiers. 2.5 years before the war ended, President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation.
Harriet was famous. She was invited to great places many people wouldn't have dreamed of. Even Queen Victoria invited her to England. Unfortunately, Harriet traveled enough to last her a lifetime. She didn't go anywhere else apart from the comfort of her home.
Harriet Tubman, at the age of 93 in Auburn, New York in 1913, died of pneumonia. A bronze tablet was placed on the courthouse in her honor.
Her legacy lives on, inspiring others.